The morning sun cast long shadows across Naval Base Coronado as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her uniform one final time before reporting to her new assignment. At 28, she had already served 2 tours overseas and earned commendations for her service in military police operations. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her posture remained ramrod straight despite the knot of anxiety in her stomach. Today marked her first day at one of the most prestigious military installations in the country, home to the Navy SEALs and other elite units. Maria had requested the transfer after her husband's deployment to a nearby base, hoping to advance her career while staying close to family. What she hadn't expected was the assignment that greeted her in the personnel office. "Gate duty," announced Lieutenant Commander Harrison, barely looking up from his paperwork as he slid the assignment folder across his desk. "You'll be stationed at the main entrance, checking identification and vehicle passes." Maria felt her heart sink, but maintained her professional demeanor. "Sir, I was hoping to utilize my military police training and overseas experience in a more substantial capacity." The officer finally looked up, his expression dismissive. "Staff Sergeant, every position on this base is substantial. Gate duty requires attention to detail and represents the first line of security for our operations. I trust you can handle checking IDs without difficulty." The condescension in his tone was unmistakable, but Maria simply nodded. "Yes, sir. When do I begin?" "Tomorrow, 0600 hours. Report to Sergeant First Class Mitchell at the main gate. He'll show you the procedures." As Maria left the personnel office, she couldn't shake the feeling that her assignment had less to do with security needs and more to do with certain attitudes about her capabilities. She had encountered similar situations before, assumptions made about female soldiers, particularly those of Hispanic heritage like herself. But she had always proven herself through dedication and competence, and she intended to do the same here. The next morning, Maria arrived at the main gate 30 minutes early. The facility was impressive, with multiple security checkpoints, advanced scanning equipment, and clear sight lines in all directions. Sergeant First Class Mitchell, a gruff man in his 40s with 20 years of service, greeted her with barely concealed skepticism. "So you're the new gate guard," he said, looking her up and down. "Hope you're ready for some real military work. This isn't some desk job where you can file your nails and answer phones." Maria bristled internally, but kept her voice steady. "Sergeant First Class, I'm here to learn the procedures and execute my duties to the best of my ability." Mitchell snorted. "We'll see about that. Gate duty isn't as simple as you might think. You're responsible for every person and vehicle that enters this base. One mistake, one moment of inattention, and you could compromise the security of classified operations and endanger the lives of our most elite warriors." For the next 4 hours, Mitchell walked Maria through the procedures. She learned the different types of identification cards, the vehicle inspection protocols, the communication systems, and the emergency procedures. She paid attention to every detail, asking questions when necessary, and taking notes in her small notebook. The most important thing, Mitchell emphasized as they reviewed the visitor protocols, is that you never, and I mean never, let anyone through without proper authorization. I don't care if they claim to be the president himself. No ID, no entry. Expired pass, no entry. Name not on the authorized list, no entry. Got it. Understood, Sergeant First Class. And another thing, some of the personnel here might try to intimidate you or make you think you should bend the rules. Don't. The SEALs and other special operations guys sometimes think they're above standard procedures. They're not. Everyone follows the same security protocols. Maria nodded, though she wondered if Mitchell was testing her or genuinely warning her about potential challenges. Either way, she was determined to follow procedures exactly as outlined. Her first solo shift began the following Monday. The morning started quietly, with regular base personnel arriving for their duties. Maria checked each identification card carefully, compared faces to photos, verified vehicle registrations, and maintained the logs precisely as she had been trained. The work was methodical, but she approached it with the same attention to detail she had brought to every assignment in her military career. Around mid-morning, a group of junior enlisted personnel approached the gate on foot. They were clearly off-duty, wearing civilian clothes and carrying gym bags. As Maria requested their identification, she noticed one of them, a young sailor named Petty Officer Brooks, rolling his eyes. "Come on, this is ridiculous," Brooks muttered to his companions. "We go through this gate every day. She knows who we are." Maria maintained her professional demeanor. "I need to see everyone's identification, please." "Look, lady," Brooks said, stepping closer to the window. "We're already late for PT. Can't you just wave us through? We're obviously military. I need to see identification from everyone before I can authorize entry," Maria repeated calmly. Brooks exchanged glances with his friends. "Great, they stick some uptight female MP at the gate, and now we're going to be late because she wants to play by every little rule." One of his companions, apparently uncomfortable with the situation, handed over his ID. "Just show her your card, Brooks. It takes 2 seconds." But Brooks seemed determined to make a point. This is exactly the kind of bureaucratic nonsense that slows everything down. Back at my last base, the gate guards knew who belonged and who didn't. They didn't need to check every single person like we're all potential terrorists. Maria felt the familiar surge of frustration, but kept her voice level. "Petty Officer Brooks, base security protocols require identification verification for all personnel. I'm not making exceptions." "Of course you're not," Brooks said with obvious disdain. "Probably the first real responsibility you've had, right? Got to make sure everyone knows you're in charge." The comment stung because Maria recognized the attitude behind it. The assumption that she hadn't earned her position, that she was somehow less qualified or experienced than her male counterparts. But she had learned long ago that responding emotionally only reinforced such stereotypes. "I'm going to need your identification now, or you'll need to step away from the gate," she said firmly. Brooks finally produced his ID, but not before making another comment to his friends about power-hungry gate guards and typical female authority complex. Maria processed their entry quickly and professionally, but the encounter left her feeling frustrated and isolated. The incident with Brooks was just the beginning. Over the following days, Maria encountered a steady stream of similar attitudes. Some personnel complied with procedures while making snide comments about excessive security measures. Others questioned her authority directly, asking to speak with a real supervisor or suggesting that she was being unnecessarily difficult. The most challenging encounters came from a small group of experienced NCOs who seemed to take personal offense at being required to follow standard procedures. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, a man with 15 years of service, approached the gate one afternoon with an attitude that immediately put Maria on alert. "New girl, right?" he said, not bothering to reach for his identification. "Rodriguez, Staff Sergeant, assigned to logistics. I'm sure Mitchell told you I'm on the regular access list. I still need to see your identification, Staff Sergeant," Maria replied politely. Rodriguez laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Look, sweetheart, I've been coming through this gate longer than you've probably been in the military. I'm not going to play games with some green MP who's probably never seen anything more dangerous than a training exercise." The condescension was obvious, and Maria felt her jaw tighten. "Staff Sergeant, I need to see identification from everyone seeking base access. No exceptions. No exceptions." Rodriguez leaned against the gate booth window. "Let me tell you something about how things work in the real military. Flexibility and common sense matter more than blindly following every little rule. You start treating experienced soldiers like security threats, and you're going to have problems. The security procedures apply to all personnel regardless of rank or experience," Maria stated firmly. Rodriguez shook his head in apparent disgust. "Typical. They assigned some by-the-book female to gate duty, and suddenly, everyone has to prove they belong on their own base. This is exactly why women shouldn't be in these positions." no understanding of how military operations actually work. The comment crossed a clear line, and Maria felt her anger rising. But she also knew that losing her temper would only confirm Rodriguez's prejudices and potentially escalate the situation. Instead, she maintained eye contact and spoke in a calm, authoritative voice. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, you have 30 seconds to present proper identification or remove yourself from the gate area. Those are your options. For a moment, Rodriguez looked like he might continue arguing. But something in Maria's demeanor, the quiet confidence and unwavering professionalism, seemed to give him pause. He reached into his pocket, produced his military ID, and tossed it onto the counter with obvious irritation. Maria examined the identification carefully, verified it against her computer system, and handed it back. Thank you, Staff Sergeant. Please proceed. Rodriguez snatched his ID and walked through the gate, but not before making one final comment loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Unbelievable. This is what happens when they lower standards and put people in positions they're not qualified for. The words hit Maria like a physical blow, not because they were true, but because they echoed doubts she sometimes fought within herself. Despite her training, experience, and proven track record, there were still people who would never see her as anything more than a diversity hire or a woman trying to do a man's job. But Maria had faced such attitudes before, and she had learned that the best response was simply to excel at her duties. She continued checking identifications with meticulous care, maintaining logs with precision, and handling each interaction professionally. She studied the base layout and personnel rosters during her breaks, familiarizing herself with every aspect of the security protocols. Word of the encounters began to spread around the base, and Maria soon realized she was being watched by personnel from various units. Some seemed curious about how she would handle the pressure, while others appeared to be waiting for her to make a mistake or give up. The attention was uncomfortable, but it also motivated her to perform at the highest possible level. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed by everyone. Sergeant First Class Mitchell, despite his initial skepticism, began to acknowledge her competence. After reviewing her first week's logs and observing her interactions with difficult personnel, he pulled her aside for a brief conversation. Santos, I'll admit I had my doubts when they assigned you here, he said gruffly. But you're doing the job right. Procedures followed, logs accurate, no complaints about actual security issues. That's what matters. Thank you, Sergeant First Class. I'm here to do my duty. Mitchell nodded. Good. But I should warn you, word is getting around that you're strict about protocols. Some of the guys don't like it. They're used to more relaxed security, especially for familiar faces. Are you suggesting I should modify my procedures? Maria asked carefully. Hell no, Mitchell replied immediately. I'm telling you to keep doing exactly what you're doing. Security protocols exist for a reason, and it's about time someone enforced them consistently. Just be prepared for more pushback. The pushback came sooner than expected. The next afternoon, a group of 5 sailors approached the gate together, clearly planning some kind of test. They were led by Petty Officer First Class Thompson, a man with a reputation for challenging authority and testing new personnel. Afternoon, Thompson said with exaggerated politeness, "We need to access the base for our shift." "Good afternoon. I'll need to see identification from everyone," Maria replied, recognizing the setup, but determined to handle it professionally. Thompson smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Well, here's the thing. We're running late for a classified briefing, and our IDs are locked in our cars in the parking lot across the street. Surely you can verify our identities through the computer system and let us through this once." Maria shook her head. "I'm sorry, but I can't authorize entry without physical identification cards. You'll need to retrieve your IDs." "Come on," said one of Thompson's companions. "We're obviously military personnel. Look at our haircuts, our bearing. You can tell we belong here." "The security protocols are clear about identification requirements," Maria stated firmly. Thompson leaned closer to the window. Listen, I understand you want to follow the rules, but this is exactly the kind of inflexibility that causes problems in real-world situations. Military personnel need to use judgment and adapt to circumstances. My judgment tells me that security protocols exist for important reasons and shouldn't be compromised for convenience, Maria replied. Convenience? Thompson's voice took on a harder edge. This isn't about convenience. This is about understanding how military operations work versus blindly following bureaucratic nonsense. The other sailors began to murmur among themselves, and Maria realized the situation was escalating beyond a simple test of her resolve. But she also knew that backing down now would undermine her authority and credibility permanently. Gentlemen, I need you to step away from the gate area and return with proper identification, or I'll be forced to call for additional security, she said clearly. Thompson stared at her for a long moment, clearly weighing his options. Finally, he stepped back with obvious frustration. Fine. But this kind of rigid thinking is exactly why certain people shouldn't be in security positions. You're going to learn that the military isn't about following every rule like some kind of robot. As the group walked away, Maria felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. She had stood her ground and enforced the procedures correctly, but she also knew that her reputation as an inflexible rule follower was being established throughout the base. The question was whether her superiors would support her dedication to security protocols or pressure her to adopt a more relaxed approach to keep personnel happy. The answer came sooner than expected. The following morning, Lieutenant Commander Harrison appeared at the gate booth, his expression unreadable. Staff Sergeant Santos, I've been receiving reports about your performance at the gate. Maria felt her stomach drop. Sir, I've been following all established security procedures exactly as outlined in my training. I'm sure you have, Harrison replied. But I'm also hearing that you're being unnecessarily rigid and creating friction with experienced personnel. Some seasoned NCOs have complained about being treated like security threats on their own base. Sir, the security protocols apply to all personnel regardless of rank or experience, Maria said carefully. Harrison studied her for a moment. Staff Sergeant, I'm going to give you some advice. Military service isn't just about following rules. It's about understanding when flexibility serves the greater good. Experienced personnel expect a certain level of respect and recognition of their standing. Insisting on checking the identification of a staff sergeant who's been coming through this gate for 5 years might be technically correct, but it's not necessarily wise. Maria felt the familiar frustration rising but kept her voice steady. Sir, are you instructing me to modify the security procedures? I'm instructing you to use judgment and common sense, Harrison replied. Build relationships with the personnel you serve. Earn their respect through competence and understanding, not rigid adherence to every minor protocol. The message was clear, even if not explicitly stated. Maria was expected to be more accommodating, to recognize the informal hierarchies and relationships that govern daily operations. But she also knew that any security breach on her watch would be blamed entirely on her failure to follow procedures, regardless of what informal accommodations she might have made. Understand, sir, she replied, though her understanding was quite different from what Harrison intended. After he left, Maria sat in the gate booth, considering her options. She could adopt a more flexible approach and risk a security incident, or she could continue following procedures exactly and risk being labeled as difficult and unfit for her position. Neither option seemed likely to lead to career advancement or professional respect. But as she thought about her military service, her training, and her commitment to excellence, Maria realized there was a third option. She could continue doing her job with absolute professionalism and competence while documenting everything carefully and waiting for an opportunity to demonstrate her true capabilities. She had faced similar challenges before and overcome them through persistence and superior performance. The decision made, Maria returned to her duties with renewed determination. She would follow every security procedure exactly as written, while treating all personnel with courtesy and respect. If that approach created problems for others, those problems would reflect on the attitudes and expectations of the complainants, not on her performance. Little did she know that her commitment to excellence and unwavering professionalism was already being noticed by someone whose opinion would matter far more than the complaints of a few disgruntled personnel. 3 weeks into her assignment at the main gate, Maria had settled into a routine that balanced strict adherence to security protocols with professional courtesy. She had learned the names of regular personnel, memorized vehicle license plates, and could spot irregularities in identification documents from across the booth. Her logs were meticulous, her procedures flawless, and her demeanor consistently professional despite the ongoing challenges from certain base personnel. The morning of March 15th began like any other, with the usual stream of early arriving personnel. Maria processed each arrival efficiently, checking identifications, verifying vehicle passes, and maintaining the security posture that had become her trademark. She had noticed that some of the initial hostility from base personnel was beginning to fade, replaced by grudging acceptance of her competence, even if they didn't appreciate her strict interpretation of procedures. Around 8:30, a black sedan with government plates approached the gate. The vehicle was pristine, clearly official, and carried markings that indicated high-level military or civilian leadership. Maria straightened in her booth, knowing that VIP visits required extra attention to both security and protocol. The rear window of the sedan rolled down, revealing a middle-aged woman in an expensive business suit. Her gray hair was styled professionally, and she wore the confident bearing of someone accustomed to command. Maria immediately recognized the signs of senior civilian leadership, possibly from the Department of Defense or another high-level agency. "Good morning," the woman said pleasantly. "I'm here for a meeting with Admiral Richardson. I believe I should be on the visitor list." "Good morning, ma'am," Maria replied professionally. "I'll need to see identification and verify your appointment." The woman smiled and reached into her purse, producing a government identification card. Maria accepted it and immediately noticed several concerning details. The card appeared authentic at first glance, but the holographic security features seemed slightly off. The cardstock felt wrong, and the photograph, while clearly the same person, had subtle differences in lighting and background that suggested possible alteration. Maria's training kicked in immediately. During her military police courses and overseas deployments, she had encountered sophisticated forged documents before. The subtle inconsistencies she was observing could indicate a serious security threat, especially given the high-level nature of the claimed appointment. "Ma'am, I need to verify this identification through our security system. Please wait one moment," Maria said, keeping her voice neutral while her mind raced through the protocols for handling suspected forged documents. The woman's pleasant demeanor shifted slightly. "Is there a problem? I assure you that identification is completely valid." "Standard procedure, ma'am. I'm sure everything is in order," Maria replied, turning to her computer to run the identification through the verification system. As she suspected, the system returned an error message indicating that the ID number didn't match the database records. Maria felt her pulse quicken, but she maintained her professional composure. This could be a simple database error, but it could also be a serious security threat. Either way, she needed to follow the established protocols for handling questionable identification. "Ma'am, I'm having difficulty verifying your identification through our system. I'm going to need to call for additional verification," Maria said, reaching for her security radio. The woman's expression hardened noticeably. "That won't be necessary. Perhaps you're not familiar with the clearance level associated with my position. I'm sure your supervisor can authorize my entry without delay." The attempt to pressure her into bypassing security procedures confirmed Maria's suspicions that something was wrong. Legitimate high-level officials understood and respected security protocols, even when they found them inconvenient. The suggestion that she should simply bypass verification procedures was a red flag. "Ma'am, I need you to remain in your vehicle while I contact my supervisor, Maria said firmly, her hand moving toward the silent alarm button that would alert base security to a potential threat at the main gate. This is ridiculous, the woman said, her pleasant facade completely gone now. I don't have time for amateur security theater. You clearly don't understand who you're dealing with. But Maria was no longer listening to the complaints. She had activated the silent alarm and was now speaking into her radio with calm precision. Base security, this is Gate 1. I have a code yellow situation requiring immediate supervisor response and identification verification. Within minutes, Sergeant First Class Mitchell arrived at the gate, accompanied by 2 security specialists and a lieutenant from the base security office. Maria quickly briefed them on the situation, showing them the questionable identification and explaining the database verification failure. The lieutenant examined the ID card carefully while the security specialists approached the sedan. After several minutes of examination and radio calls, the lieutenant returned to the gate booth with a grim expression. "Good catch, Santos," he said quietly. "That ID is a sophisticated fake. The woman is actually a reporter who's been trying to gain access to classified facilities for the past 6 months. She's wanted for questioning in connection with several security breaches at military installations." Maria felt a mixture of relief and vindication as the security team took the woman into custody. Her decision to trust her training and follow procedures exactly had potentially prevented a serious security breach and caught someone who had been evading military authorities. As the situation concluded and the scene cleared, Sergeant First Class Mitchell approached Maria with an expression she had never seen before, genuine respect and admiration. "Santos, that was outstanding work," he said firmly. "Most gate guards would have been intimidated by someone claiming high-level access. You followed your training, trusted your instincts, and potentially prevented classified information from being compromised." "Thank you, Sergeant First Class. I was just following established procedures," Maria replied, though she felt a surge of professional pride. "No," Mitchell said seriously. "You were doing much more than that. You were using your experience, training, and judgment to protect this installation and everyone on it. That's what real security work looks like." Word of the incident spread rapidly throughout the base, but this time the attention was entirely positive. Personnel who had previously questioned Maria's strict adherence to security protocols began to understand that her methods weren't about bureaucratic inflexibility. They were about genuine professional competence and dedication to protecting the base. Over the following days, Maria noticed a significant change in how base personnel interacted with her. The snide comments and challenges to her authority virtually disappeared, replaced by professional courtesy and even occasional expressions of respect. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, who had been one of her harshest critics, approached the gate 2 days after the incident with a noticeably different attitude. "Morning, Santos," he said, presenting his identification without being asked. "Heard you caught that fake reporter. Good work." "Thank you, Staff Sergeant," Maria replied, processing his ID efficiently. As Rodriguez prepared to enter the base, he paused and looked back at Maria. "Listen, I owe you an apology. I thought you were being unnecessarily difficult with the security procedures. I was wrong. Keep doing what you're doing." The acknowledgement meant more to Maria than Rodriguez probably realized. It represented a recognition not just of her competence in handling the security threat, but of the value of maintaining strict security standards even when they seemed inconvenient. The positive changes in base personnel attitudes were gratifying, but Maria was most pleased by the response from her supervisors. Lieutenant Commander Harrison, who had previously suggested she should be more flexible with procedures, approached the gate booth the following week with a completely different message. "Staff Sergeant Santos, I want to personally commend you for your handling of the security incident," he said formally. "Your adherence to protocols and attention to detail prevented what could have been a serious breach of base security." "Thank you, sir. I was simply doing my assigned duty," Maria replied. "No, You are doing much more than that, Harrison said, echoing Mitchell's earlier comments. You are demonstrating the kind of professional excellence and security awareness that we need throughout this installation. I'm recommending you for a commendation, and I want to discuss opportunities for advancement that better utilize your skills and experience. The conversation marked a turning point in Maria's assignment. She continued working at the main gate, but now her role was viewed as a crucial security position requiring specialized skills rather than a routine duty suitable for anyone. Base leadership began consulting her on security procedures and seeking her input on potential improvements to the access control system. More importantly, word of her competence and professionalism began reaching personnel from the elite unit stationed on the base. While she had minimal direct interaction with Navy SEALs and other special operations personnel due to their separate security protocols, she occasionally processed visitors and contractors who worked with these units. One such interaction occurred on a busy Friday afternoon when a contractor van arrived at the gate carrying specialized equipment for a SEAL training exercise. The driver presented proper documentation, but Maria noticed that one of the passengers, a man claiming to be a technical specialist, seemed nervous and had difficulty answering basic questions about his assignment. Following the same instincts that had served her well in the previous security incident, Maria requested additional documentation from the nervous passenger. Her careful questioning revealed inconsistencies in his story, and a thorough background check discovered that he had falsified his security clearance documentation. The incident was handled quietly and efficiently, but it further enhanced Maria's reputation as a security professional who could identify threats that others might miss. The contractor company later sent a formal letter of appreciation, acknowledging that her diligence had prevented a potentially serious compromise of sensitive training operations. As spring turned to summer, Maria found herself increasingly respected throughout the base community. Personnel who had initially viewed her as an obstacle now saw her as a professional who took her responsibilities seriously and executed them with exceptional competence. The gate booth had become known as a model of security excellence, with visiting officials often commenting on the professional standards they encountered. The transformation in her professional standing was gratifying, but Maria remained focused on continuous improvement. She enrolled in additional security training courses, studied advanced identification verification techniques, and worked with base intelligence personnel to stay current on emerging security threats. Her dedication to professional development didn't go unnoticed. Sergeant First Class Mitchell, who had become a mentor and advocate, approached her with information about advancement opportunities within the base security structure. "Santos, there's going to be an opening for a security team leader position," he said during one of their regular discussions. "It's a significant step up, more responsibility, direct supervision of other security personnel, and involvement in base-wide security planning. I think you're ready for it." "I'm definitely interested," Sergeant First Class Maria replied. "What would the selection process involve?" "Written examinations, practical assessments, and interviews with base leadership, including some of the unit commanders," Mitchell explained. "The position requires someone who understands both security procedures and personnel management, someone who can maintain standards while building effective working relationships." Maria knew that her strict adherence to security protocols had initially created friction with some personnel, but she also believed that her consistent professionalism and proven competence had ultimately earned respect. The opportunity to take on greater responsibilities and help shape security policies for the entire base was exactly the kind of advancement she had hoped for when requesting transfer to this installation. "I'd like to apply for the position," she said firmly. "I thought you might." Mitchell smiled. "I've already spoken with Lieutenant Commander Harrison about your qualifications. The formal announcement will be posted next week, but I wanted to give you advance notice so you could prepare." As Maria walked home that evening, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from being dismissed as an inexperienced gate guard to being considered for a leadership position in base security. The path hadn't been easy, and she had faced skepticism, condescension, and outright hostility from some quarters. But she had remained committed to excellence, maintained her professional standards, and proven her capabilities through consistent performance. The real test, however, was yet to come. The leadership position would require her to work directly with personnel from all base units, including the elite special operations teams that represented the installation's primary mission. She would need to balance security requirements with operational needs, manage personnel who might still harbor doubts about her qualifications, and demonstrate leadership capabilities that went beyond technical competence. But Maria felt ready for the challenge. Her experience at the gate had taught her that respect couldn't be demanded or assumed. It had to be earned through competence, consistency, and unwavering professionalism. She had learned to handle criticism constructively, to maintain her standards without becoming rigid or inflexible, and to build working relationships based on mutual respect and shared commitment to mission accomplishment. Most importantly, she had learned that her gender, ethnicity, or initial assignment didn't define her capabilities or limit her potential. What mattered was her dedication to excellence, her commitment to continuous improvement, and her willingness to stand firm on matters of principle while remaining open to learning and growth. As she prepared for the next phase of her career, Maria couldn't have imagined that her most significant professional recognition was still ahead, and that it would come from the most unexpected source on the entire base. The foundation she had built through months of exemplary performance was about to be tested in a way that would validate everything she had worked to achieve. The morning of August 23rd began with an unusual level of activity around the base. Maria had noticed increased security preparations over the past week, with additional personnel conducting facility inspections and communication equipment being tested throughout the installation. While she wasn't privy to the specific details, her experience told her that something significant was planned. As she settled into her gate booth for what would prove to be a career-defining shift, Maria reviewed the special instructions that had been distributed the previous evening. A high-level delegation was expected to visit the base for operational briefings and facility inspections. Security protocols were elevated, additional verification procedures were in effect, and all gate personnel were reminded of the critical importance of maintaining absolute vigilance. The morning proceeded normally until approximately 10:30, when a convoy of 3 black vehicles approached the main gate. The lead vehicle bore military command flags, and Maria could see uniformed personnel in the passenger seats. This was clearly the delegation that had prompted the heightened security measures. As the convoy stopped at the gate, Maria followed the enhanced verification procedures she had memorized the previous evening. The lead vehicle's passenger window rolled down, revealing a Navy captain who presented his identification along with the delegation's authorization documents. Maria examined each document carefully, cross-referenced the authorization codes with her computer system, and verified that all personnel were listed on the approved visitor roster. The captain waited patiently while she completed the thorough verification process, which took several minutes longer than a routine check. "Everything appears to be in order, sir," Maria announced professionally. "Welcome to Naval Base Coronado. Please proceed to Building 7 for your escort to the briefing facilities." "Thank you, Staff Sergeant," the captain replied with genuine courtesy. "Your attention to detail is exactly what we want to see at our installations." As the convoy proceeded toward the main base, Maria felt a sense of professional satisfaction. The enhanced procedures had gone smoothly, and she had processed the high-level delegation with the same meticulous care she brought to every assignment. It was exactly the kind of competent professional performance she had worked to maintain throughout her time at the gate. What Maria didn't know was that the delegation included some of the most senior naval special warfare commanders in the military, including personnel who had been briefed on the recent security incidents at the base. Her role in identifying and stopping the attempted infiltration by the fake reporter had been highlighted in the security briefings as an example of the kind of vigilance and competence required to protect sensitive operations. The delegation's visit continued throughout the morning, and into the early afternoon, with briefings, facility tours, and operational discussions taking place in various secure areas of the base. Maria continued her normal duties, processing routine base traffic while maintaining the elevated security posture required during VIP visits. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, something extraordinary happened. A single figure approached the gate on foot, walking with the kind of purposeful stride that immediately commanded attention. Even from a distance, Maria could tell this was someone significant. The bearing, the confidence, the way other personnel seemed to notice and acknowledge his presence. As the figure drew closer, Maria realized she was looking at a Navy SEAL commander, identifiable not just by his uniform insignia, but by the quiet intensity and professional competence that seemed to radiate from him. This was clearly someone who had earned his position through exceptional performance in the most demanding military operations imaginable. Commander James Mitchell, no relation to her supervisor Sergeant First Class Mitchell, was a legend within the special operations community. At 38, he had led successful missions in every major conflict zone of the past decade, earned multiple decorations for valor, and was known throughout the Navy for his tactical brilliance and unwavering commitment to his personnel. What made his approach to the gate remarkable was not just his stature within the military hierarchy, but the fact that SEAL commanders typically used separate security protocols and rarely interacted directly with main gate personnel. His decision to approach Maria's station was deliberate and unprecedented. "Good afternoon, Staff Sergeant Santos," Commander Mitchell said, using her name with a precision that indicated he had made a point of learning it. "I am Commander Mitchell. I wanted to speak with you personally." Maria immediately recognized the significance of the moment. SEAL commanders didn't make social visits to gate guards. Whatever had prompted this interaction was important, and she needed to respond with the same professionalism she had maintained throughout her assignment. "Good afternoon, sir," she replied, standing at attention within the booth. "How may I assist you?" Commander Mitchell smiled slightly, an expression that transformed his serious features and revealed the kind of leader who earned loyalty through respect rather than fear. "Staff Sergeant, I've been hearing quite a bit about your work here at the main gate. Specifically, I've been briefed on your role in identifying and stopping that security threat several months ago." "Sir, I was simply following established procedures and utilizing my training," Maria replied, though she felt a surge of pride that her work had come to the attention of such a senior commander. "No," Commander Mitchell said firmly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded in life-or-death situations. "You were doing much more than following procedures. You were demonstrating the kind of professional judgment and security awareness that we depend on to protect our operations and our people." The commander stepped closer to the gate booth, his expression becoming more serious. "Staff Sergeant, the work we do in special operations depends absolutely on security. When we deploy on missions, when we train for operations, when we conduct planning sessions, our effectiveness and our survival depend on knowing that our base, our facilities, and our information are protected by people who understand the stakes." Maria listened intently, understanding that she was receiving a perspective on her work that few gate personnel would ever hear from someone of Commander Mitchell's experience and authority. "What you did when you identified that fake reporter wasn't just good gate duty," the commander continued. "It was the kind of security work that directly protects operational capabilities and potentially saves lives. The intelligence that person was trying to gather could have compromised missions and endangered personnel in active operations." The weight of those words struck Maria powerfully. She had always understood that security work was important, but hearing from a SEAL commander about the direct connection between her duties and the safety of personnel in combat operations gave her role a significance she had never fully appreciated. "Furthermore," Commander Mitchell continued, "I've been observing how you've handled the various challenges and criticisms you've faced here. The way you've maintained your standards while building professional relationships. The way you've continued to improve your skills and knowledge. The way you've earned respect through competence rather than demanding it through position. These are the qualities we look for in leaders. Maria felt her heart racing, uncertain where this conversation was leading, but recognizing that it represented a turning point in her career. Commander Mitchell looked directly at her with the kind of steady gaze that seemed to evaluate everything about her character and capabilities. Staff Sergeant Santos, I want you to know that your professionalism, competence, and dedication have been noted and appreciated by the senior leadership of this installation. You represent the best of what we expect from military personnel. Then, in a gesture that would be remembered and discussed throughout the base for years to come, Commander Mitchell stepped back and rendered a crisp, formal salute to Maria. The salute from a Navy SEAL commander to a staff sergeant at a gate booth was unprecedented. It was a recognition not just of her competence or her service, but of her character and her embodiment of military values. It was an acknowledgement that excellence could be demonstrated in any assignment at any level, and that true professionalism transcended rank or position. Maria immediately returned the salute with precision and pride, understanding that she was experiencing a moment that would define her military career and her understanding of what service truly meant. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion she felt. "It's been an honor to serve here." Commander Mitchell lowered his salute and nodded approvingly. "The honor has been ours, Staff Sergeant. Keep up the outstanding work." As the commander turned and walked away, Maria remained at attention for several long moments, processing what had just occurred. The spontaneous gesture of respect from one of the most respected officers on the base had validated everything she had worked to achieve and demonstrated that excellence and dedication were always noticed, even when they seemed to go unappreciated. Within hours, word of the commander's visit to the gate had spread throughout the base. The image of a Navy SEAL commander saluting a gate guard became a powerful symbol of the military values of respect, recognition of excellence, and appreciation for service regardless of assignment or rank. For Maria, the moment represented more than personal recognition. It was confirmation that her commitment to maintaining the highest standards, her refusal to compromise on security procedures, and her dedication to continuous improvement had been the right approach all along. The challenges, criticisms, and doubts she had faced had been tests of her character and resolve, and she had passed them by remaining true to her principles and her commitment to excellence. The salute also represented a transformation in how she was viewed throughout the base community. Personnel who had previously seen her as an obstacle or an overly rigid rule follower now understood that her approach represented the kind of professional excellence that earned recognition from the most elite units in the military. Her reputation evolved from that of a strict gate guard to that of a security professional whose competence had been personally acknowledged by special operations leadership. In the weeks following Commander Mitchell's visit, Maria received the formal notification that she had been selected for the security team leader position. The selection board had been unanimous in their recommendation, citing not only her technical competence and security awareness, but also her leadership potential and commitment to military values. More significantly, she received an official commendation for her role in preventing the security breaches, signed by the base commander and endorsed by the visiting delegation that had included Commander Mitchell. The commendation specifically noted her exceptional professional judgment, unwavering adherence to security protocols, and outstanding representation of military values. As Maria prepared to transition to her new leadership role, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from being dismissed and underestimated to being recognized and respected by the most elite personnel on the base. The path had been challenging, requiring her to maintain her standards in the face of criticism, to prove herself through performance rather than demanding recognition, and to demonstrate that excellence could be achieved in any assignment when approached with the right attitude and commitment. The lesson she had learned and would carry forward into her new responsibilities was that respect and recognition couldn't be demanded or assumed. They had to be earned through consistent demonstration of competence, character, and commitment to excellence. Her experience had shown her that the most important battles were often won not through dramatic gestures or confrontational moments, but through daily dedication to doing one's best work regardless of the circumstances or the audience. Commander Mitchell's salute had been a powerful symbol, but the real victory was in the months of professional excellence that had preceded it. Maria had proven that military service was about more than rank or assignment. It was about embodying the values of integrity, excellence, and service that defined the military profession at its best. As she looked ahead to her new challenges and responsibilities, Maria carried with her the confidence that came from knowing she had earned her position through merit and had gained the respect of her colleagues through her character and competence. The gate duty assignment that had begun as a disappointment had become the foundation for a career built on the solid ground of proven excellence and recognized integrity. The salute from Commander Mitchell would always represent a pinnacle moment in her military service, but Maria understood that the real measure of her success would be how she used the respect she had earned to serve others, mentor junior personnel, and continue building the reputation for excellence that had brought her to this point in her career. She had learned that mockery and dismissal could be overcome through persistence and professionalism, that respect could be earned through competence and character, and that recognition would come to those who remained committed to excellence regardless of their current assignment or the attitudes of those around them. These lessons would guide her throughout the rest of her military career and beyond, serving as proof that dedication to one's principles and commitment to continuous improvement could overcome any obstacle and earn recognition from the most demanding and respected leaders.